want to end on a real note of hope, and particularly what you were saying there, Janice, about what made a big difference in your own upbringing as an Aboriginal Indigenous person in this country, which is a living relationship with Jesus Christ, and the role of the church, which, Matt, you touched on a scripture that I've written down here. Actually, it's, for he, Christ himself, is our peace. It is he who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. And what we have to be careful with all these initiatives that are happening and all of these different agendas that are taking place, the state cannot do what the church is commissioned to do. The state cannot do what only the church has been commissioned to do. And the church has such an important role in our society today. And inasmuch as we've been asleep at the wheel or distracted as a church, there goes the nation. There goes the peace. There goes the unity. There goes the prosperity. So this is a time for us as a church to step up and take on our responsibility as the people of God who have been entrusted with something, and it's the gospel. And the gospel has the power of God to everybody who believes to transform lives, to change situations from the ground up, to put together families, to break the cycle of abuse, to break the addiction. Brother, you talked about your work with Teen Challenge. It was only the power of the gospel. It wasn't the state pouring money in that helped the program. It was the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Reconciliation, true reconciliation between man and his maker, and between each one of us of all different backgrounds, races, colours and creeds, is the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the power of that message is vested in us, the church. So be very wary of turning over to the state what only the church can do. Because when you make the state your God, you become slaves to that state. And that's what we've seen. If we turn over to the state our security and safety from a deadly virus, we become slaves to that state. And they'll inject us with all of their experimental treatments with their big pharma mates, as you're willing to take to keep your security and your safety. And if we think by going into a polling booth and voting for a very vague question, as you pointed out there, William, do you recognise the Aboriginal people? I'll vote yes. That'll fix the problems. As Janice said, it's not going to fix the problems. As Senator Jacinta Price said, it's not going to fix the problem. The only thing that can fix the problem is the reconciliation that comes through the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Brother Pat went up to Alice Springs because we know, as we saw what was going on in Alice Springs, it's the only way is with the power of the gospel to break that cycle. I want to read something, and I've got a few of these to give to anybody who's interested. This is something I wrote a number of years ago as I looked into the terrible situation, the violence that was happening in Arakoon. Who remembers Arakoon? As a teacher, I looked at that situation because the principal had to get airlifted, and the teachers had to get airlifted out of that community. I think it was twice. Kids coming and attacking them with machetes and axes, and it was a terrible state of affairs. I could not even describe some of the things that were happening. It's too horrific to even share publicly. But I looked into this because as a man of God and as a teacher at the time in the state education system, I was talking to my principal about it at the time. And I said to him, the state cannot fix this problem. Doesn't matter how much education, if we give them more education, that won't fix it. Only the gospel can fix it. So I did my own research, my own study into the history of Arakoon. And I want to read some things to you today. I won't read the whole article. I'll just read a little small portion of it. And if you're interested, you can get this. And I've put this article on each one of your seats there for the speakers. I wrote this. It's hard to imagine that as recently as 1970, there was no hint of the misery that would engulf Arakoon. Professor Sutton, who has about 4 decades of study of the Aboriginal people, describes his experience of Arakoon in the early 1970s. Suicide was unknown. People who survived the rigours of infancy and early childhood had a good chance of living to their 70s. Local men mustered cattle and ran the local butcher shop. They logged and they sawed timber for the house building. They built the housing and other constructions. They welded, they fixed vehicles. In the workshop, they worked in the vegetable gardens under a minimal set of mission supervisors. Women who were not wholly engaged in child rearing worked in the general store, clothing store, schools, hospital and post office. This somewhat idyllic life, as described by Sutton, was the peaceful and industrious heritage left by the Presbyterian Church in the Archer River Mission Station. Despite being poorly funded and notwithstanding its shortcomings, the mission station, founded in 1904, is remembered for being supportive of Aboriginal rights and determination. Natasha Robinson, another journalist, reports that in 1975, the Progressive Presbyterian Church was advocating land rights, bilingual education, and a return to outstation life. This is paradise. A Queensland government report describes the mission superintendents from 1924 to 1965, Reverend Bill Mackenzie and his wife, as being unusually liberal in their support for the continuation of Bora traditions, traditional hunting, and the use of Wik languages. Without a doubt, the church played an essential role in laying the platform for the 1970s optimism and social cohesion that existed in Arakoon. There was hope and resourcefulness in the community, a healthy work ethic, a trustworthy moral compass, and emerging cultural leadership. This was Arakoon in the 1970s. What happened? Well, it's not popular to say these days, and I gave this article to my principal. We talked through this. The church led the Aboriginal community well and was the chief supporter of Arakoon's journey to self-determination. Tragically, the church would be sidelined as lucre and liquor interests exploited Arakoon and sabotaged its promising future. This tragedy in Arakoon is not dissimilar to that facing Alice Springs. There is a direct correlation between social breakdown and moral decay and the sidelining of the church. This is evident in Arakoon, Alice Springs, and towns and cities across Australia. And I end with this statement tonight. The church is irreplaceable as both preserving agent and physician. Where the church is maligned and neutralised, just as we looked at Joseph and Daniel in those ancient empires, the state finds itself ill-equipped to halt moral decay and heal society's wounds. We see that kind of moral decay today. Janice has talked about the confusion the young people, Indigenous people, are facing, and we see it even assaulting our own families in this country. The church cannot be sidelined at this time, brothers and sisters. The hope for Australia and our unity, our security, our prosperity is a revival of the churches. The voice we need to be concerned about right now is the voice of the church at this time. We cannot be silent at this time. We have come to the kingdom for such a time as this, brothers and sisters. And as the church steps up and does her role, there will be, I prophesy it, I decree it, another great awakening of humanity. And that is our only hope. I'll do everything for it too, because it's all we got for our families and our children. God bless you all. Pastor Mark, just ask if you'd close in prayer this evening.
How about we stand this afternoon, to wrap this great afternoon up. Thank you, Dylan and Fiona Oakley, for your putting this evening together this afternoon. Freedom has a voice.